Hi, and welcome back to our weekly discussion of our mission in this world as mankind in general and as Jews in particular, based on what we can learn from the 5 books of Moses, always also known as the Torah. Just to remind everyone, we are approaching this on a weekly basis, learning what we can from the weekly Parsha. Parsha being the portion of the 5 books of Moses, that of the Torah that we read as Jews every week in a yearly cycle. This week's Parsha is Parshas Pinchas. Pinchas is a very interesting character, also called Phineas, sometimes in English. He's really a continuation from last week's Parsha when the Jews were doing idol worship and committing adultery with the women of Moab, and a plague came down. The people stopped, but one person in particular was very rebellious and actually paraded this Moabite harlot right in front of Moses himself, who was so stunned he didn't know what to do. Pinchas took it into his own hands and killed them both for this kind of behavior. Surprisingly enough, the Parsha that's named for Pinchas doesn't spend so much time talking about him, although we will learn something from him. It spends just the first little section talking about how he is being rewarded from Hashem, from God, for his zealotry and being appointed to the priesthood along with the sons of Aaron. It also talks a lot about the different sacrifices that are brought through the holidays, censuses that are taken, and also the appointment of Joshua as the future leader of the Jews. Since Moses is going to die in the desert, he's told that he's going to die now that they're in their 38th year and almost ready to enter Israel. So let's start there. One of the things we learn in the very end of this parsha is the appointment of Joshua, Yehoshua, as the future leader of the Jews. And so we very simply learn from that part of our mission is not only to be leaders ourselves, but to create leaders. And what kind of leaders do they become? Well, we also know that, of course, we have to create leaders, but implicit in that is we also have to deter wrong behavior. That's also part of our mission in terms of bringing spirituality to the world. We have to raise up those who can help as future leaders and also limit to the extent we can the activities, very much like Pinchas did. So, but we're warned here that anyone's zeal, his own zealotry, as the Rav says, is compromised by his own imperfections and failings. And although our goal is to create peace, an act of violence for most of us outside of someone like Pinchas is actually not a covenant of peace, but it's a deadly sin. When does an act of violence turn into a covenant of peace? It's when someone who is beyond reproach commits it. So it's sometimes a temporary necessity and never the preferred route. So that's one point. The second point, which is just something interesting, which we've talked about in the other videos, is how the Jewish people are referred to in the parsha. Sometimes they're referred to as machane, like an encampment, and sometimes they're referred to as Adas Israel, community, the community of Israel, the community of Jews. And as we discussed before, the difference there is Adas Israel, community, is a group of people who are galvanized behind a common goal, a common mission that is inherent to our God-given mission on this world. The interesting thing in this parsha is throughout the parsha, it's talking about Korach. From parshas ago already, we discussed Korach was a rebel. He rebelled against Moses. He rebelled against God himself. But the way it refers to Korach and his followers as Adat Karath, the community of Korach. So why would it use this seemingly complementary term to refer to the community of Korach, these followers, these rebels? I believe that one could presume that the message here is that a community can be solidified behind a bad mission or a good mission, just as we saw in last week's parsha with how Balak was able to galvanize support behind his mission against the Jews. That was a bad mission, but he was able to do it. Korach was also able to galvanize. And I think perhaps one take-home message here is that we need to be careful, not only as we try to understand our mission, but as we jump on board to other people's understanding of the mission, that it is untainted and it is for good reason. And we should all have such a fortune to understand our mission completely and recognize our purpose in this world and achieve the final redemption. May it be speedily in our days. Besoros Tovos and Shabbat Shalom.